Hey guys and ladies, welcome to another video. Today we have a late night insight video on a Celine fragrance, and actually this is a house that has not got very much talk on my channel, mostly because I own zero fragrances from the house. It's really not a house that moved me in any way, but I have to say some of the folks were pretty adamant that I should smell more from the brand, and so today we are going to talk about a fragrance from 2019, created by Heidi Slimane, or creative director Heidi Slimane, and this is called Ode de Californie. Now, I don't have no idea why it's called Ode de Californie. I don't even know what Californie means. I've never even heard the word Californie before, so I don't really understand the name. Other than the very first thing that comes to mind when I read Californie is California, which I'm guessing that's exactly what it's supposed to be, because this is a tribute to Heidi Slimane's time in California, so it makes sense. But why it isn't Ode to California, I have no idea. But it does say that this is an acoustic and solar perfume in tribute to California, where Heidi Slimane lived for more than 10 years. So if you're not familiar with Heidi Slimane, he's one of the biggest names in fashion, if you will, not just perfume, but fashion in general. He created the Dior Homme line as one of his big claim to fames. And there are literally people who are, like Heidi Slimane religious zealots. They will follow him wherever he goes. So there's a rumor he's leaving Celine. So if he goes to, I have no idea where he's going to go. If he goes to Chanel next, right, there's going to be a whole contingent of people that will then go to Chanel and buy whatever he creates, right? He leaves Chanel and goes to MFK. There'll be a whole group of people that buy whatever he does at MFK, or whatever the idea is, right? That is the loyal following that he has kind of created for himself. So this fragrance came out in 2019. And this is my third Celine that I'm discussing on the channel. Actually, I'm going to do a fresh spray because I've got about a 2-hour dry down here. So I just want to kind of remind myself of the opening again. And so the note listing on this one is bergamot, white orris butter, palo santo accord, okay, tree moss, and patchouli. The opening is very fresh. And you can almost get a little bit of that patchouli in the beginning in the background. It actually opens quite... someone left a comment on Parfumo, and they said the opening is quite boring and nondescript. And they would put this in like a $50 fragrance category. And you know what? I can't argue with that statement in the opening. But this is one of those fragrances that gets better as time goes on, okay? So I really like the dry down. I'm a big fan of the dry down. And actually, if you made me pick my favorite Celine from the three that I've discussed on the channel so far, which is Bois d'Armont, Black Tie, and now Eau de Californie, Eau de Californie would be at the top, okay? And then Bois d'Armont, and then Black Tie at the bottom. I really did not like that vanilla accord in Black Tie, okay? So, so Celine is kind of a interesting house, and they're a house that has been getting a lot of talk lately, especially amongst people who like those high-end designers. You know, if you're someone who loves the Dior Privés or the Chanel less exclusives, like if those are your bread and butter, this is a house that you'll probably really like. And this particular fragrance, Eau de Californie, well, let me read you the blurb. So it basically says that the memory of Palo Santo, that magical essence of wood with fresh, smoky, and creamy facets. In the background, the powdery notes of orris and tree moss gives this Californian dream the signature of a Parisian couturier house. I don't know. And bergamot, white orris butter, palo santo accord, tree moss, and patchouli is the note listing according to the house website itself. 100 mils is $280. 200 mils is $410, which is like... the bottles look very similar to the Chanel less exclusive bottles, but they have like ridges on the side. And the cap is, instead of circular, it's got ridges on it as well. You know, very similar to Chanel effect, okay? It's got that Chanel aesthetic, if you will, to my mind, when I just look at it as an outsider who's never owned a Celine fragrance. So, one thing about Palo Santo wood is I actually really like Palo Santo wood, and I do have some experience with Palo Santo wood because somebody sent me a handful of these from the house of Matriarch, and they are actual Palo Santo wood. And I just burned this before this video, the actual Palo Santo wood, so I could remind myself of the smell. I did go through an entire one of these, and I think I have like 2 more left. Someone sent me a bunch of these. So Palo Santo means holy wood or sacred wood is basically what it means. The wood is filled with fragrant oil and has been used for centuries by shamans for ceremony, healing, and meditation. So it's almost like take on an incense. Okay, Palo Santo wood is has been burned for thousands of years, similar to how frankincense is burned in the Middle East, let's say, for thousands of years. And Palo Santo is a Spanish word literally meaning holy wood. Okay, and the wood, the resin, and the oil has been used for thousands of years by Spanish people in South America, up through modern day Mexico, and up to, you guessed it, California. Okay, so the opening gives you a little bit of this fresh. You get a tiny hit of bergamot for, I would say, like 10 seconds, and then it's overtaken by more of the patchouli. And within a couple minutes, that Palo Santo accord starts kind of taking over, and it really does feel in the opening like you're getting a fresh wood. This fragrance is heavy on the woods. Okay, so if you are a woody fan, this could be your fragrance. If you're a fan of woods, or if you're looking for a well done woody fragrance, this is a well done woody fragrance. Okay, the Palo Santo note is slightly milky, ever so smoky. Well, not ever so smoky, slightly smoky, and very ever so slightly spicy is the way that I would put it. Okay, so sometimes, like for in the opening, and this is the third time I've had a chance to officially test this, and like right now, I just got like a ghost hint of what may be considered a cumin accord, and then it's gone. Like the tiniest hint of just a little bit of spice, um, and it's gone. You know, like a extremely light take on something like Declaration, but the spices are extremely very toned down, and it's much fresher in the opening. And I have burned, like I said, this wood to kind of remind myself, and I've gone through one of these. This is the second one I've had a chance to burn. So it's interesting because the wood itself smells much greener when you smell it. And I'm sure that this is relatively fresh, and you know, it almost feels like you're smelling, when you smell the wood itself, it almost feels like you're smelling this creamy barbecued celery like wood, incensey celery, which smells like which sounds like the worst Campbell soup flavor you could ever imagine. Creamy barbecue celery. Come get your Campbell soup now. But it's actually not that bad. It's almost like a barbecued bacon cream and celery like smell with incensey woodiness, okay? With this generic woody, creamy, incensey quality to it. Smoky quality, okay? Barbecued smoky quality to it. So, but the fragrance is actually completely different. And even though, like I said, I do think that this is the best Celine that I've come across for my taste. Like you said, Ramsey, I'm sending you a Celine. I'd say just give me Eau de Californie. I know I can wear it. And I would wear this. If you gave me Eau de Californie, I would wear this, to be fair. It's not that I wouldn't wear it or I think it's a bad fragrance, because I don't think it's a bad fragrance. But here comes the pivot. My biggest beef with this is that, and I complained a little bit about this when I reviewed Bois d'Armont and Black Tie, okay? So at least I'm consistent. But all of them, but especially this one, feels like it has this, I don't want to say boring, but it almost feels like there's this like chemical antagonism going on. So what I mean by that is, if anyone ever did this science experiment in class when they were like in elementary school or something, where you would take drops of dye and put them in like a beaker filled with water. And so you would put red dye in, it would turn red. Someone else put green dye in, it would turn green. And then the teacher would come around, and the teacher would come around with this almost like neutralizing agent, whatever the hell the teacher had. They would put it in there, and all of a sudden, bam, the water would go back to clear, right? And one or two drop of this neutralizing agent in the beaker instantly turns your water back to clear. And these Celine fragrances feel like that to me. They almost feel muted. Like you can smell the colored chemical drops that were in the water, but they almost smell like it's been neutralized. Okay, like there's this neutralizing agent going along and almost cleaning everything up in a chlorine-like sense. Not that it smells like chlorine, but the fragrance, it almost feels like as it starts to blossom, it hits this like snow globe like glass, and outside of that glass, everything is completely neutralized. So what could be a fragrance that really blossoms just feels like a tiny little poof, on my skin. And it's funny because um, I know what fans of the house are going to say. I don't even have to go any further to know. The first thing that's going to pop into the heads of fans of the House of Celine is that they're going to be mad because they're going to say, you just don't understand, Ramsey. You're a big, mean brute. These are meant to be elegant and high quality. And, you don't want a fragrance that screams. You want a fragrance that sits close to your skin. And I completely understand that argument. Like I said, I would wear Eau de Californie. I don't think it's a bad fragrance. Some of the other ones, Bois d'Ormont or Black Tie that I tried so far, I don't think I would be excited to wear those as my scent of the day. This one I would probably wear as my scent of the day. I enjoy the smoky, woody aspects of this. I really do. I wish it gave me a little bit more, is where I'm really going with this. So, interestingly enough, there was a story when I reviewed Black Tie or Bois d'Ormont, I can't remember, but the story was about Heidi Slimane making this like British blazer or double-breasted blazer. I forget what it was, but he made it over and over. Like the story was, he was obsessed with drawing and making this British double-breasted blazer, English double-breasted blazer. I don't know, but I love perfume. I don't necessarily care so much for fashion, but Heidi Slimane was apparently obsessed with doing this, and maybe obsession runs through Heidi Slimane because he made it again and again and again. It really feels like he's obsessed with making kind of this Dior Homme style DNA over and over and over again. Because here, the creamy aspects really start to show their face. And once the creamy aspects really become more legible, which I would say are already beginning, the nebula of the creamy aspects are beginning to blossom on my skin here. But really, as the hours dry by, so now, a couple hours in, the creamy orris is really in full bloom here. And so once they start showing their face, you're just going to be hit with that throwback to Dior Homme with the house again and again and again. That lightning in a bottle that he caught with Dior Homme. It's almost like Heidi Slimane is like reliving his glory years with Dior or something. Like a middle-aged man who wants to relive his college glory by going back to his same haunts. He used to, and then he keeps his hair with whatever the popular style is nowadays. He's got what's popular nowadays? The mullet. He's got the mullet going, the side shaved, even though he's almost like 50 years old. And I know from somebody like me, criticizing maybe one of the most successful designers of all times means absolutely nothing to anyone who's into fashion. And I'm not criticizing his fashion sense, to be fair. This channel is about my take on the fragrance, okay? My personal take according to my nose. And so one thing I will have to say, though, about Heidi Slimane is that he sticks to his guns. Like, he creates whatever he likes, and I stick to my guns, and I say however I feel. And obviously, his style of creation here just isn't clicking with me. There is no way in hell you can convince me that 100 mils of this is worth $280. If you blindfolded me, and this was in like a blind sniff session, I would say I liked it, but it would be like a $50 fragrance would be my guess. And I know it sounds like I'm being critical of the house. Maybe I'm just critical of LVMH's pricing structure. $280 for 100 mils, big upcharge for this type of smell. I mean, I know it's not the same, but I could wear This Is Him by Zadig and Voltaire. I got that fragrance for $40 for 100 mils, and it probably would scratch the exact same itch as this. I know it's not the same fragrance, but I love Nathalie Laursen's work. I think she's an amazing perfumer. I don't like that Celine doesn't list the perfumers, I have to say. That really bothers me, especially in 2024. They should list the perfumer. And so the fragrance is basically this, as a recap, because these late night insight videos are supposed to be quick, and yet I always ramble on. But the opening focuses a little bit more on that solar accord, the solar accord, as they say. And so it feels like you just get sort of a little bit of a freshness a freshness before, seconds before the fragrance turns to this wood heavy structure, which carries it all the way to the end, okay? And it's like almost like a jump forward into the woodiness, but in the opening, you can still pick up a little bit of that bergamot when you first spray. And the Solar Accord, maybe they use some slight aldehydic feel or something in there to give it that bright freshness, if you will, that solar freshness. Maybe the tiniest bit of violet leaf in the top, but I'm just guessing here. And the progression of the wood accord, which is really the heart and soul of this fragrance, feels like this is a wood in the top, except for like the first 10 or 20 seconds. It feels like it's wood in the top, wood in the heart, wood in the base. I mean, it's woody, woody, woody. And, it's like you start in the sunshine of beautiful California, the beautiful California sun on your face, and slowly you start descending like into a forest or something. You're still in California. The California sun is still there. It hasn't gone, but you're in this forest. Maybe you're in like a redwood forest or something. Those redwoods can reach like 30-foot skyscrapers. It's crazy. I went, I want to say it was 2018 maybe, or 19, to a redwood forest in California. It was beautiful. And so as you head into the forest now, the sun is blocked out by the big giant trees, but obviously the sun is still there, and all you smell are the woods from the trees, and staying true to its kind of mystical, subtle, creamy, woody smell. You get kind of hints of that incense coming through, that creamy incense, which is very nice. I have to say, I really do enjoy that part of the fragrance, the creamy incense. As an incense lover, I really do enjoy this. I do think it's very elegantly done. And it's almost like you can smell bits and pieces of the rest of the forest. So maybe you get like a little bit of the oak moss, which maybe it's like redwood moss or something. I don't know. But it adds a little bit of texture. Oak moss always adds beautiful texture to a fragrance. Like you're feeling the bark, feeling the oak moss. And now you're maybe into a little bit of an open area where there's some sunlight shining through the trees, and there's a little patch of grass growing, and you get a hit of the grass. The grass is probably done by some sort of a vetiver accord, so you do get a hint of vetiver here and there. But to me, the star of the show is the wood. I mean, and of course that orris note that comes in heavier as the hours tick by. And the orris accord is kind of the note du jour of all Celine perfumes. And, I made the joke that the Celine C's in one of my videos, and that really offended one commenter. Maybe he was like someone who worked for Celine or something, but he was like super offended I said this. And I was like, well, fuck off, dude. It's my take. But I said that the Celine logo feels like they took the interlocking Chanel logo and just kind of put them the other way. Reversed them, put them inside out. What's funny is, since all of the Celine line, the note du jour is that orris butter that obviously harkens back to his time with Dior Homme and the orris accord there, and Heidi Slimane being obsessed with making things over and over and over again. And, I made the joke that the Celine logo kind of copying a little bit of Chanel, and I mentioned the bottle looks very Chanel-like earlier, and now we have their line basically emulating a line by Chanel that also focuses on iris. We have iris, we have iris, we have LVMH, LVMH. And so, I mean, there's only so far you can take this, and so I totally see why maybe Heidi Slimane's ready to turn tail and run and do something else, because I mean, how many times can you recreate this iris type accord? And I would love to know who the perfumers are, by the way. But maybe Celine copying Chanel was closer to the mark than I ever thought. I have no clue. But now, one thing I have to mention, though, since we've kind of gone through a quick initial run over, although it's almost 20 minutes in, but this quick rough draft. One thing you have to keep in mind, and I know it's hard to do when you have these kind of competing thoughts in your mind. I'm taking you down all these different paths, but while I'm describing all these different details, maybe the grassy vetiver, the oak moss, the textured oak moss, the sort of creamy, incensey, woody smell, which is that Palo Alto, very milky as well, in a weird kind of way. Very milky. But in the back of your mind, you have to keep in mind that that neutralizing effect. That's the main thing to always keep in mind. That neutralizing effect is always there. It almost never goes away from me. Everything feels like it's floating around and it's blending beautifully, but when it reaches a certain pitch or a certain octave, then that neutralizing agent just comes in, goes around, and just blots everything out that smells past a certain acoustic level, as the write-up says. It says an acoustic and solar perfume. So it's almost like Heidi Slimane is pissed off once you get past a certain acoustic level, and he has these neutralizing agents going around blotting out the smell of everything that gets past a certain level. That's how these Celine smell like to me. And I have to say, I mean, for someone who is a Celine fan watching this, you have to understand my taste, right? So today I reviewed Monsieur Carven from 1978. That is right up my alley. That's the kind of thing that I would go crazy for. If I was going to spend $250, it would be on a bottle of that over a bottle of Eau de Californie, hands down, okay? And you may call that vintage taste in perfumery. You may say I'm like a brute. I like the heavy, loud stuff. And some of those old fragrances are loud, and I like that type of perfumery. I just always have. I always will. That's my heart is with vintage, hands down, okay? But if you're like my brother Eugene, who I love like a brother, and who is probably one of two main people on earth that you have to thank for me being on YouTube, or curse for me being on YouTube, depending how you feel about me. If you like your perfume like he likes his perfume, soft, ethereal, comes down an octave, you know, sometimes it plays peekaboo and it comes in, you smell it, all of a sudden you can't smell it again, and then your body temperature heats up and it pops back up again. If that's kind of your thing, then this brand very well could be for you. I mean, this could be like a love. This could be like your love brand. But for me, for a vintage enthusiast like me, this brand just feels like another LVMH like recycle of overpriced fragrances in fancy bottles that I just don't think are worth the money. And if I'm going to spend my hard-earned money, which I haven't been able to spend my hard-earned money on any fragrances in the last 10 months, but if I was going to spend my hard-earned money on a fragrance, I don't think it would be a modern LVMH like this. I would probably go to the past, or to the artisanal houses. I'd buy a Sultan Pasha or something like that, you know? So that's the tough part now, is that I smell this, I like it, but it just doesn't move the needle for me anymore, especially with the fact that, you know, it's almost like it's overcompensating to the point where it's not letting any of the notes come up a little bit. You know, there should be some spikes and some peaks and some valleys. It just feels like everything has been like blotted out. Like there's a governor on it. Have you ever driven a car with a governor and the governor was just set too low and you can't go any faster than you want to go on the highway and everyone's blowing by you, you know, because the stupid governor on this car? That's what this feels like. It just feels like it is governed at this exact, like you cannot go past a certain speed, period, no matter, even if it makes perfect sense, you just can't do it, sorry. And I'm not a big fan of that, I must say. But, again, this is my favorite Celine I've come across so far. So, and I think I still have a couple more to go through, so if you like this kind of content, more Celine reviews coming up for you. There's also some Guerlain, so more LVMH reviews coming is the main point of this. But if you have any experience with the House of Celine or Eau de Californie, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do let me know what you think. Appreciate everyone watching and commenting and liking and all the stuff you do. You know, the thumbs up actually does help the stupid YouTube algorithm. As much as I despise the algorithm, that stuff does help. So I do appreciate everyone taking their time and joining us here. We are still small enough where I can respond to every single comment. So do leave me a comment if you're into that kind of thing. And I appreciate everyone being here. Cheers. Have a good evening. And I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.